Greetings friends, it's been a while since we did a video with me and the camera, and there's a few things I want to talk to you about. One is the Sanguinius, the Sons of Sanguinius Detachment. The other is the Gladius Strike Force Detachment. One of the channels that I watch on YouTube, Plus One to Hit, has made these really easy printable cards. This is going to save you like 25 bucks if you just print them yourself. There's going to be a link in my community tab. You can check that out if you want to print them yourself. Anyway, today I'm going to talk, since I've played both detachments, I'm going to go through every unit I used in each of the detachments, tell you probably a little bit about what I thought about the detachments, what I thought about every unit, and while we're doing it, we're going to check out the new Games Workshop app. Hopefully this will be a pretty useful video. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get into it. Okay, so here is my phone, and here is the Warhammer 40,000 app. This app is a million times better than the old app. I just want to say that. So this is good. I like how easy it is to find the rules. I did think that I think the most important thing is these data sheets can be a little bit tricky because you've got to find, you can't, as far as I'm aware, you can't favorite any of these. So you got to scroll down, find your Space Marine detachment and click into that, which is kind of unwieldy. But over in Battleforge, here are my two lists. These are the two lists that I played this week. The first list is the Sons of Sanguinius list. So let's just go through each unit one at a time. You can click into the units here, you can click up here in the top right, and you can actually see their profile. This isn't too bad. It's not the quickest to find things, and I guess you'll get used to knowing that the points, for example, are underneath unit composition. But anyway, Mephiston, let's talk about him first. And let's talk about, maybe we'll start with the Sons of Sanguinius Detachment. We'll talk about that for 2 seconds, and then we'll get into Mephiston. So the Sons of Sanguinius Detachment is +1 attack and +1 strength when we make that charge move. Now, I didn't use any of the enhancements in this list. The one I think is possibly the most valuable is probably Visage of Death. But anyway, didn't touch any of them. Stratagems, I used Red Rampage. I wanted to use Only in Death Does Duty End, and I've got something to tell you about that a little bit later in the video. And I also used Armor of Contempt. Okay, so overall feeling of the Sons of Sanguinius Detachment was I didn't think it didn't feel as versatile, or it didn't feel like there was as many tools in that detachment as Gladius. But we'll come to Gladius later. So +1 attacks obviously is pretty useful. But I think +1 strength in the current meta felt pretty lackluster. Or, I mean, we used to have +1 to wound, which was great, but everything's toughness has gone up. So +1 to strength has a lot less value than +1 to wound, and with increased toughness, that also kind of, it felt a bit neutered. It felt like it just wasn't that good. It's funny because they said in this, they said this edition was going to be less killy. That's certainly how I felt. Like my Death Company felt less killy, my Sangre Guard felt less killy, but then I was coming into Eldari who were spraying me with mortal wounds, 85 point units doing 21 mortal wounds, you know, like, so like they were insanely killy and I wasn't. The one thing I noticed about this detachment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only way we can get increased armor penetration, or AP, is from the Sanguinary Priest attaching to a unit, but he can't attach to Death Company and he can't attach to Sanguinary Guard, and they're the two units that I felt would be benefit the most from additional AP. So I wasn't in love with that. And funnily enough, there is a way to get more AP using the Gladius detachment when you're in the Assault Doctrine. So technically Sanguinary Guard and Death Company could be more killy in Gladius, potentially. We'll talk about that in a minute, and I guess there's going to be there's so many maths and so many questions. So this video is going to be kind of a fact-finding video. Let's talk about everything. Let's go back to my army list, and we'll go through it. Right, Mephiston. It was really hard for me to talk about him, only having played one game. He came out with an Pulsar. The Eldari killed everything that he was with, and killed him in one turn. He felt pretty survivable. The 5-up against this 5-up Feel No Pain, which felt pretty good. I actually failed at one point because he gets a 4-up against Psychic Attack, so I think I could have maybe had an extra wound or 2 on him. Forgot that he had a 4-up Psychic Attack. I never got to use Fight First because he was never charged, he was shot off the table. I never got to use Transfix and Gaze. The one thing that I noticed while I've been playing is most of these rules are like while the model is leading the unit. the unit has to fight first. So arguably, like, when I lose my 5 assault intercessors, I lose my fight first. And I'm not sure if I like that. I mean, I guess that's the way it goes. So Mephisto's hard for me to say anything about, in that he seemed quite survivable. Let me know when you've played Eldari, and you'll see that they're doing an obnoxious amount of damage for the points of their units at the moment. So Mephisto seemed survivable, but I never got to do anything more with him. I will play him. Maybe I'm going to use him in my next list. All right, so I'll use him this week, and I'll get back to you on Mephisto. Commander Dante. I use Dante. It's nice to see him at 135 points. He has the same problems he had before, right? Like, he has toughness 4, 2 up, 4 up. So I would say in some ways he's got less survivable, right? He used to have the ability that he was both -1 in shooting and melee. He's lost that. So he's less survivable than he was before, but he got like 40 points cheaper. I actually think like his melee was actually better than it was before. So on the charge, you're like 9 attacks, 2 up, strength 8, -3, 2 damage. Lethal hits as well, so auto wounding on 6s to hit. I felt his melee was really good, right? 9 attacks, strength 8. I actually used Red Rampage on him to give him Lance. I guess the Red Rampage gives you lethal hits as well, but obviously you wouldn't get that, so I got the +1 to wound on the strength 8. I felt like Dante was actually like really good in damage. While he's leading a unit, you get +1 to hit and +1 to the charge rolls. Both of those are good. And at the fight phase, he makes enemies take battle shock, subtracting 1 from their score when they do. Do you know what? Reading that now, I made them take a battle shock. I forgot to make them subtract 1. So maybe this is slightly better than it was. Making them battle shock prevents like counter offensive if they fail, prevents stratagems. But in general, I didn't think Dante and the Sangre Guard were all that survivable. That was one of my big concerns about Sangre Guard and Dante for this edition. And I felt like their damage was decent. I wouldn't say their damage was great anymore, because most of the Sangre Guard are only hitting on strength 6 now. So for example, I had to deal with Wraithblades. Well, they're toughness 7. So you got Sangre Guard only wounding on 5s now into an infantry unit. They don't have a huge weight of attacks. They don't have any way to reroll wounds. So we can talk about we'll look at the Sangre Guard next. For 100 and whatever it was, 135 points, I felt Dante was okay. I'm not convinced. I've been speaking to James on this. I'm not convinced I'm going to have Dante lead Sangre Guard anymore. Sangre Guard's bonuses now are if they are led by the Warlord. I think it might be better to have a captain to lead them, and Dante to lead maybe like Vanguard veterans. So we'll come to that. He still has his Melta Pistol with sustained hits D3 now. I think the same problem with Dante's Melta Pistol happens. I'm pretty sure I shot it once. You have no rerolls, so I either failed to hit or failed to wound. That's always what happens with Dante's pistol. That's why last edition I used that Bite Captain, because he could reroll 1 hit, reroll 1 wound, and it was just it was so much better than this. Sustained hits D3 is swingy as all hell, I guess. So Dante's melee damage seemed good. He was the shining light within the Sangre Guard, and I will run Dante again. I'm just not convinced I'll run him with Sangre Guard because they're super expensive and they felt like they didn't do enough damage. Let's just talk about them next because it's a good segue, right? And you can see here, this is all being done in the app, and it's actually kind of quick once you know what you're doing in the app. And I want to say 10 out of, like, this, compared to the last app, this is a million times better. Anyway, let's get on to Sangre Guard. So the ranged weapons, I mean, I ran them with all Infernal Pistols, and I couldn't even shoot the unit I wanted to shoot, actually. I wanted to shoot the Wraithblades, but the second I shoot them, all 10 of them were going to get to shoot me back on, like, Weapon Skill 3 up at -4. Again, this comes down to Sangre Guard not having invans. I've talked about this before. I don't know why they still don't have an invan. They're an Artificer Armor that should have a 5-up invan. That's literally what Artificer Armor has for everybody else. Whatever. So I wasn't able to shoot the Infernal Pistols. I had moved them all in range, and I wasn't able to shoot any of them. So that was a little bit frustrating. I also took a bunch of mortal wounds on the Sangre Guard before I even got a charge because of Eldar at the moment. However, in melee, I had the +1 strength, +1 attacks. So it was hitting on, I had 5 attacks, strength 6, -2 damage. I paid my lance, or I paid my red rampage, which is like +1 to wound, and 6s to hit become auto wounds, into a squad of Wraith Guard. It was a 10-man squad of Wraith Guard. I want to say, like, it's only -2 now. So the strength of the Sanguinius Guard used to be you could get up to -4 on their swords. At -2, it's really halved. I feel like like against a good enemy with like a 2-up or a 3-up save, it feels like it's really half their damage output. Before you even factor in like some enemies might still be -1 damage, we're not seeing too much of that. I did run the one guy with the power fist, so I did have a few extra attacks where I actually did get to wound on 2s, but again, and I actually used Oath of Moment on their target, and so Oath of Moment, full hit and wound rerolls, and Dante, and it just felt like the damage output just wasn't there anymore from the Sangre Guard. I was really disappointed with them. They obviously can get -1 to be hit in melee. They can get -1 to be wounded if they're with the Warlord in melee. But I mean, these guys actually did die in melee. They died fairly quickly because they got doomed, and that counteracts the -1 to wound. Doom is +1 to wound, so that just sort of got counteracted straight away. But yeah, and they got eaten up in melee by like cheap enemy like Howling Banshees and Striking Scorpions. It wasn't even expensive elite melee units that killed them. It was just bog standard cheap Eldar units that killed them. So they didn't seem all that survivable in melee. Certainly not 43 points per model for 43 points per model. They didn't feel anywhere close to 43 points per model. I think you could run 5 of them, but I think you would want to run them with a captain, because the captain will make the Incarmite Blade strength 7 on the charge, which like I said, I was fighting toughness 7 infantry, so strength 6 just wasn't cutting it. Yeah, at 215 points per model, or 215 points for the 5 of them. Yes, it's cool they're OC2. They did flip something for the one turn they were alive, but then they got mopped up really quickly. I think you can field 5 Sangre Guard. I don't think you can field more than that. And I think you've got to be wary, because their damage output felt really low. Felt much lower than it was in previous editions. I'm trying to think, and I used Red Rampage on them. I don't think there's anything else I could have used to buff their damage more. They can only be attached to, I think it says here on the app. Does it say who can attach to them? No, maybe it says on the characters who they can get attached to. Attach unit? Okay, no, it does say it. So if a captain model from... so basically it's a captain or Dante. That's literally all that can attach to them. I think it might be better to go with the captain. The reason that it could be even better to go with the captain is the captain gets to play a stratagem for 0 CP. That's the advantage of the captain. You get that free stratagem every battle round. I'm going to check that. I was going to say turn. I think it's battle round. Let me check Rites of War. This is my other list, but Rites of Battle. Once per battle round. Yeah, so once per battle round you can use a stratagem for 0 CP. So I think the advantage of having them with the captain is that you can either Red Rampage for 0, or if you know you're going to get attacked, you can Fight on Death for 0. And Fight on Death costs 2 CP at the moment. So Fight on Death for 0 could actually be like the best way to run Sangre Guard. Dante was fine. Dante's melee was good. His buffs were fine. The +1 to charge was fine. I hid the Sangre Guard in a Land Raider because I know that they're not survivable at toughness 4. So I guess with the Land Raider, additional movement coming out of the Land Raider, like I didn't need the +1 to charge. So would the +1 strength have been better here? It's very similar. But I think the captain getting you those free stratagems might be the better play here. Okay, Assault Intercessors. I can't talk about the Assault Intercessors. They died with Mephiston when the Impulsor got popped. I will 100% run Assault Intercessors again soon. They get a decent amount of chainsword attacks tied with some sort of decent unit, and I guess that free Thunderhammer. I was hoping that Mephiston and the Assault Intercessors would do some good work out the Impulsor. Maybe what I need to do is put them into Strategic Reserve. I'm not sure you can play Rapid Ingress from Strategic Reserve. I need to check that. This is also the first time I'm using the screen link app, so if I use it more often, I'll buy it. So please excuse the screen link. The Impulsor with the Shield Dome, toughness 9, 11 wounds, felt similar to what an Impulsor does before. It moves 2 inches less, but you're probably going to advance it. I think I advanced it in turn 1 and did an action. I think I could have shot with it, but I think I forgot that you can shoot, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just moved it on and did an action. The Impulsor seemed fine. The explosion seemed... I was going to say, I think there was some change to the explosion rules. I don't remember the explosion rules now. I guess there was a lot of rules to take in, and we'll get more familiar with the rules as we play. But, you know, in terms of transporting the 6 Tacticus Infantry, it was fine. Impulsors can be pretty swingy, I guess, because of the 5-up Shield Dome, and that's how I run it. I do like the Shield Dome. I do think that's a way of making it good. I think it was killed by mortal wounds, or I think it was killed by a D-cannon doing like 8 damage, and I don't know if that's something you can really anticipate, or if you can really deal with. Sometimes those D-cannons just eat things alive. I did try and kill the D-cannons. I think I actually put enough firepower into all the D-cannons to kill them. It just wasn't one of my days, and the D-cannons just decided to hang around and win the game for Eldar. Anyway, Impulsor, I'm going to run it. I feel like I need to run it again. But I wasn't thinking, oh great, the Impulsor is super useful. I've played Impulsors to tournaments before. Sometimes they get popped in one turn. 5-up Invuln will do that. You know, it swings both ways. Other times they'll linger around and can essentially win you games because they survive. They swing, like I said, 5-up Invuln swings both ways. So Impulsors they're not my favourite. At 95 points, I think they're better than they were before. I think they were 110 or maybe even 125 with the Shield Dome. Maybe they were 110 when they did Arcs of Omen. It's hard to remember. Anyway, let's move on to Death Company with Thunderhammers. And I run 5 Death Company with Thunderhammers. They get full rerolls now. However, I think the important thing to note with Thunderhammers, which I don't think everyone has picked up on, is they now hit on 4s. So if you're ever -1 to hit, you now hit on 5s. That's pretty horrific. Thunderhammers do not get many attacks either. Just 3 per guy, so I guess it would be 4 on the charge. I might have forgotten to roll 4 actually. I think maybe I only rolled 3 per guy. It was the first time playing, and there was probably a lot of mistakes in the stream. Yeah, maybe I rolled 4. I don't know. However, Thunderhammers felt fine. I think for me now, I'm hoping WYSIWYG isn't as prevalent in tournaments and stuff, because I think you'd probably be better running the Power Fists. You basically get +1 to hit with the Power Fist, and the only thing you lose is devastating wounds. Power Fist Infernal Pistol might be the way to go. I mean, I guess you could go Power Fist Hand Flamer, but I think Power Fist Inferno or Plasma Pistol seems like the best deal. I think the one other thing to say is maybe attaching Astaroth to get the devastating wounds on the Power Fists could be worth it. It also helps a bit against, you know, if you ever get made -1 to hit. The full rerolls from the Death Company are nice. The other disadvantage of the Death Company is if the Chaplain's not close, then they're OC 0 essentially, which, you know, we'll talk about the Death. You know, they can't control anything, which is problematic. So there is an argument there to basically, you kind of want a Chaplain. I was actually thinking, like, should I run a Chaplain on a bike with Outriders to make the Death Company more viable? I haven't decided that. The Death Company, I guess, are missiles at the moment. However, I don't think the missiles are as good as they were before, because even strength 9 on the charge, and it's only 2 damage, it's -2. It's a lot less attacks. It used to be 5 attacks per model on the charge. It's now 4, so it's 1 less attack, and it's on You know, like against armigers previously, you would wound on 2s. Now against armigers, you wound on 5s. So like that's you know, like they're 10 points cheaper, but you used to wound on 2s, now you wound on 5s. The Death Company went into the Wraithblades, and then as always, Death Company just instantly die after they've made their charge and made one round of combat. That's how they work typically. They didn't feel overly killy either. Their AP, I mean, Thunderhammer AP didn't feel great before, but at least we got +1. I'm sort of drawing a blank. Like, I was looking, there's no way in the Sons of Sanguinius Detachment to get +1 AP, which is madness because we're a melee chapter that's all about killing stuff in melee. And I guess power weapons have 2 AP, power fists have 2 AP, so we're kind of capped on 2 AP here for a melee from both the Sangre Guard and the Death Company Marines. Okay, so I'll probably run Death Company again. I mean, I will run Death Company again. I'm just not sure that Thunderhammers is the best use of them now. It might be Power Fist and Infernal Pistols. If you do Astrath, you can get the Devastating Wounds anyway, and then you're going to get more hits potentially. So, yeah. Alright, Desolation Marines next. Everyone knows Desolation Marines. They have a bunch of indirect fire. They're very good with Oath of Moment. They also have like a decent amount of... I'm running them with the Super Crack, so that's like Ballistic Skill 4 up, Strength 10 -2, D6 +1. 5 of these guys is fine. I think they'll do some work. They will soften targets up. They obviously can be teleported around with the Librarian Dreadnought. That was kind of my plan for them. Unfortunately, they got charged by some Eldar character, like a tiny little toughness 3 Eldar model that can move about 30 inches and has a 3-up invuln, so I couldn't even kill it in Overwatch. Miles was nice to me and say, like, do you want to Overwatch this? Because I've got about 8 3-ups on my Fate dice. So I was like, well, that's kind of pointless, isn't it? But yeah, so Desolation Marines are definitely one of the better units. I think they can work with Blood Angels. They worked really, really well in Gladius, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. Yes, Incursor squads. I've used Incursors a lot. Unfortunately, in this game, they got killed by Melt of Fire trying to do an action early in the game. They got killed on Overwatch. Like, all 5 of them got killed in Overwatch. They weren't charging, they were just moving on to an objective to try and do an action. That's something to be aware of. Units that can make a lot of auto hits. And again, Eldar can just take 6s, so they basically do auto hits, and then 6s, so they do D6 +2 mortal wounds, so basically 8 mortal wounds from one guy for 2 6s. But yeah, the Incursors, I mean, the 6-inch pre-game move is fine, it's not amazing. The ability to move them around with the Librarian Dreadnought could be really useful. Being able to do some mortal wounds now when they charge, because they have the mine can be used defensively now. They also get, so they get +1 anything that they shoot. Everything else in your army that attacks the target in the shooting phase will get +1 to hit. And then when you, at the start of any phase, so I guess you could do that in the fight phase, you can select an enemy with 3 and a 2-up, they suffer D3 mortals, or 2 D3 mortals on vehicles. So I think they're better than they were, probably. I'm going to use them again in this battle. Couldn't really tell how useful regular Marines were. So we'll come back to them. The Land Raider I ran was the standard one with 2 las cannons, or 2 Godhammer las cannons on both sides, a Hunter Killer missile, a multi-melta, the Stormbolter, and the Twin Heavy Bolter. Overall, I think its firepower felt the same as like running a Land Raider last edition. Like, I think I shot everything. I want to say I shot all its weapons at the Wraithblades now. I don't think I did a single... I didn't kill a single guy. I maybe did like 2 wounds to one guy or something. And I think that was from the last cannons. Everything else did nothing. Yeah, I guess it's a toughness 7 infantry unit, but still, I felt like Land Raiders were going to be more reliable damage. maybe I just had a really bad game / turn / my rolls with shooting Land Raiders is bad. But yeah, the Land Raider survived a lot because basically it's very easy to get a cover save now. So assuming that you get hit with like -2 AP and you can ignore one from cover, then you're still on a 3-up save. You can play Armor of Contempt, I guess, to ignore the other AP. I think I did use Armor of Contempt, or I think I maybe used... Yeah, I think I used Armor of Contempt, or maybe Smoke on the Land Raider. Land Raider lingered all... It was the one unit that lingered in the battle for a long time against the Eldari. I'll probably run a Land Raider again. I didn't think its firepower was as useful as I thought it might be. So, if its firepower wasn't as useful, there is... And the thing is, normally I'm probably going to protect jump pack units inside it. Maybe if I'm protecting like Blade Guard, that would be fine. But if I'm going to protect jump pack units, there could be an argument for just putting them in an Impulsor, because you're just going to move the Impulsor up anyway. You're asking your opponent, can you take 16 wounds off a toughness 12 vehicle in turn 1, or turn 2, or whatever, early in the game? Can they do that? If they can do it, great. If they can't do it, then you just disembark and charge. The Land Raider didn't seem to do that much damage throughout the course of the game. I wasn't that impressed with it. Maybe it needs a Tech Marine. I mean, sure. I don't know. I'll run a Land Raider again. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Part of me thinks my next game I'm going to run a Vindicator and a Gladiator Lancer, and that's going to be the armor. Forget about the transports. The transports didn't work much in that game against Eldar. We run the Landspeeder. The Landspeeder is cool because it basically means that your blast weapons from the likes of the Whirlwind or the Desolation Marines can ignore cover, and you can also get +1 to your hit roll. I mean, that's cool. I like the Landspeeder. I think the Thunderstrike might be really useful as well to get +1 to wound, and I think I might end up running both. But anyway, next up, Librarian Dreadnought. So he did his teleport in one turn, and the teleport felt cool. I felt like his Feel No Pain aura, hopefully against Mortal Wounds and Psychic, was going to be cool as well. But I can't remember. I think he got killed by like a single shot from the Bright Lance, or I think it was 2 Bright Lances hit him and went through his armor, and he just asked me like, how many wounds does your Librarian Dreadnought have? And I was like, well, 9. I think I said 9. It's actually 8 looking at it now. And he just picked a 5 and a 4 from his fate dice and instantly killed it. Not having the character keyword means that it's going to be difficult. Like, you're going to have to try and obscure this guy. I could have had him in cover, I suppose, to make his save one better. I could have potentially smoke screen. Does the Librarian Dreadnought have smoke screen? It's not something you used to have to do, right? Because he had... He doesn't have smoke? Are you joking? Because I've glued smoke launchers to the top of mine. He must have smoke. He used to have smoke. So they took away the character keyword, and they took away the ability for him to... I actually don't know the rule on smoke. I assume that you need to have the smoke screen keyword. How cool a book is this, though, huh? The smoke screen keyword. Smoke screen. 1 smoke unit from your army. Librarian Dreadnought does not have smoke. The picture of him, you can see it there behind that little thing on the top of the Dreadnought. Those are smoke launchers. They're literally in the picture right there on the friggin' app. Those are smoke launchers behind the little, like, the wings and the skull above the Dreadnought's golden head. That's smoke launchers back there. Why does he not have this? James Workshop don't like the Librarian Dreadnought, apparently. They want him to just die. No character keyword. Alright, Games Workshop, I don't know. The Librarian Dreadnought, maybe you'll get smoke back with her codex, whatever. Next, Relic Terminators. So I use the Relic Terminators to go after a character and try to use both their combi weapons, or combi bolters, which are rapid fire 2, and their Reaper autocannon, essentially to try and kill one of those D cannons so that I would be safer, and then I wanted to charge them onto an objective and get the character. Thinking of that, maybe I should have used the grenade keyword. I actually don't know the rule for the grenade harness. I assume that the grenade harness lets me shoot grenades at longer range. I don't actually think that's here in the app. I don't think it mentions what the rules of a grenade harness are. It just gives them the grenade keyword. So yeah, maybe I was going to say grenades are 6 inches now or something. I'm not actually sure what the range of grenades is. Yes, I don't think you can use grenades when you arrive from Deep Strike. Let's put that rule book back up there. Let me get it down again. Put this handy little thing. Grenade. Within 8 inches. Okay, so there's no way to use grenades from Deep Strike. Okay, I mean, that's fine, I guess. When do you use grenades? I assume you use them in the shooting phase. Yeah, you use them in the shooting phase. Okay, and they're good for possibly 4 mortal wounds. Okay, so I could have used a grenade. I couldn't have used grenades, so I tried to shoot out a D-cannon, which they failed. They did make the charge against the character and kill the character, and then they were in cover on the objective, and then they got hit by 13 mortal wounds from the D-cannon, which just eliminated the Terminators, because there was 4 left, so that's 12 wounds, and there was 1 guy on 1 wound, that's 13 wounds. It's almost like it was made to be, just 13 wounds left across the Terminators, 2 up, 4 up, toughness 5, none of that matters. 13 mortal wounds, they're dead. Okay, I'll run Terminators again. I run them all at 9th. Hard to say how good they were in 10th. I expected their shooting to do more. But I guess no AP on their Storm Bolters or Combi Bolters. I guess, yes. Maybe I should have expected less. I expected more. I don't know why I expected more. We talked about the Sangre Guard already. We talked about the Scout Snipers. So the thing that everybody loved about the Scout Snipers is that they have concealed positions. They can't be shot within 12. Arguably, that makes them better than Eliminators, because Eliminators can be shot, and Eliminators is only 3 guys. This is 5 guys. They now have 2 wounds per guy. If they stand still, their guns are heavy. They're 36. So basically, you should be getting probably like 4 or 5 hits. I think my wound rolls must have just sucked. I put them 5 inches up, which means you get the plunging fire of -3, or 1 additional AP of -3. Yeah, they must. I guess it's hard to find the terrain piece that's 5 inches up, and then when you put them on that roof 5 inches up, they can't hold an objective. So it's kind of counterproductive. You want them to hold the backfield objective, but you want them to be able to shoot. I'll probably run them again, the Scout Snipers. Probably, if my Librarian Dreadnought had still been alive, maybe I could have done some more plays with them. They seemed like they were okay. We'll use them another time. Alright, Whirlwind. So the Whirlwind damage is much better than it was before. It's now Strength 8, -2 damage, D6 plus 3 blast. So it will kill infantry pretty well. Yeah, I guess it'll kill infantry pretty well. It's never going to kill any armor, but it should kill infantry pretty well. I actually think I shot it at the same D-cannon, and that D-cannon just tanked it all and then did 13 mortal wounds. Anyways, I like the Whirlwind now. The Battle Shock part of it, because it Battle Shocks infantry potentially when you shoot them. However, in theory, to me, this is worthless, because most of the time you pass Battle Shock anyway. But let's say they do fail Battle Shock. The problem with this is, the thing about the Whirlwind that was good before is you could use Suppression Fire, I guess, which is now called Pinning Bombardment, similar thing, where you could use it to prevent that unit from using Overwatch. Well, Overwatch can now be done in the movement phase. So the second you move close to the enemy that you want to charge, they'll just Overwatch you then, rather than wait for you to shoot them with Pinning Bombardment and then potentially be Battle Shocked and not be able to use Overwatch. So, based on that, I guess Pinning Bombardment isn't there to prevent Overwatch. It can prevent counteroffensive, I guess, if people have CP for counteroffensive, but it feels like Battle Shock is a mechanic that a lot of people will pass most of the time. I think over the course of like 2 games, we each failed a couple of Battle Shocks, but instantly the next turn we passed those Battle Shocks. So it was like 1 unit for 1 phase was maybe Battle Shocked, or 1 unit for 1 turn was maybe Battle Shocked. I don't really see any value in this. I guess the value in the Whirlwind now would be it can sit in the backfield, it can hold the backfield objective, it can average like 6 shots, maybe 8 shots against a big 10-man squad, and it will kill. Like if the enemy just have like cultists or something, even Marines, arguably, even like Space Marines holding stuff in the backfield, this can kill them. If the land speeder can see them as well, remember the indirect fire doesn't take the penalty to the indirect fire doesn't take the penalty for cover, because the land speeder, if it sees them, it can ignore cover. So that was one of the things that I was using. The Whirlwind still has giant range. I'm not sure I'll keep fielding the Whirlwind. I'll probably field it a bunch of times though throughout this edition, because I'm very used to the Whirlwind from last edition and I like it. I think it can probably try and get line of sight more often than it could last edition, because it's more survivable now. It's OC3, so it would actually hold the backfield against like 1 or 2 models if that ever was a situation. I don't know. On paper, the Whirlwind looks good. In practice, I'm not sure it performed as well as I'd kind of hoped it might do. I gotta do some more testing with it. Next up, I want to talk about my Voidsmen at Arms, and this was the last unit for this list. The cool thing about the Voidsmen at Arms is if you give the sergeant who is able to have a shotgun, the Voidsman takes the shotgun. That means these guys can advance and do actions, because the stipulation of doing actions is your models or your unit is eligible to shoot. Well, the guy with a shotgun will be eligible to shoot after you have advanced. So for 40 points, these guys have kind of got better. They're never going to kill anything. Maybe these guys will kill something. They do have OC2 for whatever that is worth. They will maybe kill something. It's 5 guys, OC2. The sergeant has a shotgun, or he's called the Voids Master or some nonsense, I guess. If you shoot the closest target now, you have lethal hits, so I guess you might be able to do some wounds with your las guns. They are 40 points. I was going to say, yeah, every 5 models in this unit, you can have a rotor cannon, and you can have basically 3 guys with las guns. The rotor cannon isn't horrible either, you know. 6 attacks, hitting on 5s, but sustained hits, strength 6, 0 AP 1, but again, auto wounds, so I guess anytime you roll a sustained hit, you get 1 wound and 1 additional. So yeah, they're for 40 points. They're an action unit. They still are an action unit. Some people are saying that now, if you check out the extraction squad, I think they come here. These guys are basically the same at 35 points. They also basically have shotguns, so they can move in advance. However, I of course I've built the more expensive model. That's fine. I still think there is value in running Voidsmen. I actually have 2 squads of these guys. With a shotgun, of course, so I can do that if I need to. So that was my Sons of Sanguinius list. Overall, I felt like it was a reasonably decent thought out list. I probably, in hindsight, give it like a 7 out of 10. I'm going to have to figure out some improvements to make to it. And this has turned into a crazy long video for just talking about the one list. So let's... I was going to say, let me split this into 2 parts. Let me release this earlier in the week if I can, and then on Friday let me release this Gladius list, or maybe I'm going to release both at the same time. We'll see what the video editing takes me like. I'm desperate to try and get 75,000 views on the channel this month. This is the closest I've ever had. The channel has been doing amazing because of 10th edition. Thank you so much for watching all the videos. If you did like this video and you got some value, please hit like. If you have a question about any of these army lists, please leave it down below. You can also join my live streams, and we always just, at the moment, we're just always talking tactics, armies, units, everything. There's so much to discuss. Okay, and if you want to support the channel, then the best way to support the channel is to become a channel member. There's a big join button under every single YouTube video. That is the best way you can help me out. Make it... Give me some more validation to tell my wife I'm effing off upstairs to make YouTube videos all night. Support the channel. I really do appreciate everyone that's doing that. I have been John. This is the Blood Angels Commander channel. I did say I was going to talk a little bit about the comparison with Gladius. So let me do that, and then So based on that, I think I want to just finish this one video talking about the difference between the Sons of Sanguinius and the Gladius, or the first impressions, the difference. And then I'm going to film another video right after this for the Gladius Detachment, and we'll see how I got on with video editing. Maybe both of these will release on the same day. I've never tried that before, so we'll see. The interesting thing I think about the Gladius is obviously the ability to use combat doctrines, and there's two doctrines that stand out to me a lot, and that is tactical doctrine, which is we're eligible to declare a charge in a turn, shoot and charge in a turn we fell back. If we talk about units of Sangre Guard full of infernal pistols, units of Death Company full of infernal pistols, Death Company, caveat, will need a chaplain to allow them to fall back, otherwise they can't fall back. Remember, that's like their Black Rage rule. And then Assault Doctrine. In this doctrine, you're eligible to declare a charge in the turn which you advanced. I've talked so many times about the strength of the Blood Angels being our movement. Well, 12-inch movement in some of these new terrain pieces isn't that much. 12 plus d6, and of course that advance can be re-rolled, and I actually did re-roll it on one of my units because I rolled a 1. That actually felt really useful, being able to charge after 12 plus d6 movement. And the other thing that I really liked about the Gladius Detachment is the stratagem that they have in Gladius is adaptive. I think I've got this folded the wrong way. The stratagem that I really like is the can't find it now. Honor the chapter. So while Blood Angels have the stratagem which is like lethal hits plus lance, that's Red Rampage, on one Adeptus Starters unit for 1 CP. The units that you're potentially going to run that on, like Death Company, if they're attached by the Lamartives, they get lethal hits anyway. And Vanguard Veterans, if they charge, they get lethal hits anyway. Whereas Honor of the Chapter is, you get lance, but if you're in the Assault Doctrine, you can get plus 1 AP. And I think that's the only way I can see of getting more AP on melee units. So, Honor the Chapter, if we go back, I suppose, to like, you're running one squad of Death Company, you're running that squad of Sangre Guard with a captain attached, or you're running Dante attached to Vanguard Veterans, and you're running the Sangre Guard attached to the captain, then you have the potential to play Honor of the Chapter on multiple units, giving all those units plus 1 to wound. I already said at the beginning of this video, plus 1 to strength doesn't feel that useful. So plus 1 to strength, let's assume that's not that useful. It will be useful in some cases, but into some of the new high toughness stuff, there's, if you're fighting like a knight, then there's no difference between strength 8 and 9. There's no difference between strength 5 and 6. So plus 1 to wound is kind of what you need from lance. So the additional point of AP might be pretty useful there, especially like you're fighting a knight, but they got like a 3-up save or something, no invuln, so an additional point of AP there will be actually really useful. So Honor the Chapter felt really good, especially when you can advance and charge, and the interesting thing about that is you also have Adaptive Strategy now, which costs 1 CP, which says select the Devastator, Doctrine, or Assault Doctrine until the start of the command phase. This combat doctrine is active for that unit instead of any other doctrine, and you can also use that even if you've already selected it. So if you had like a unit of Sangard that are quite far away, or whatever unit, and you're desperate, you're like, I need to make that really long charge, then you could pay that 1 CP to be like, right, for this turn, that unit has advance and charge. And that made this detachment feel really flexible compared to our Blood Angels detachment. Now, I only have one game of each, so arguably I know SHIT, and there's a lot still to talk about. But join me in the next video where we talk about the list that I played in this. And if you are a big fan of the channel, you will see that I have another video coming, another live game this week. And that live game, I think I'm playing Gladius again. Like I said, this one feels really, really flexible. And I'm not sure +1 strength, like, yes, +1 attack is really good. +1 strength feels like it's not good at all. But then here's the thing that I was like, so we talk about speed being our biggest important thing for Blood Angels. Well, if you don't make the charge, because you can't make the charge, because you can't get in, then +1 attack doesn't help at all. So you could arguably say, like, +1 strength and +1 attack in certain situations do nothing. There's no value in them whatsoever. It's rubbish. It doesn't do anything. You didn't make the charge because you're too far away. Whereas this, we can advance and charge, and we can still have Dante, so we can still get +1 to hit. We can still get +1 to charge. So you could potentially, even if you roll a 1 on your advance, you're moving 14 inches. Which brings us back to what we used to have when we had Wrath of Baal, where we move 14 inches. And a jump unit that can move 14 inches, and if you roll a 6 on your advance, you can move 19 inches. Then that's some serious threat range. Plus you can fall back and charge. Plus if there's a unit you really feel like you need to get out of combat because they're going to get eaten alive, you can fall back, shoot your pistols, and charge. There's a lot of flexibility in this. Anyway, my gut, being a Blood Angels player for forever, tells me that I need to figure out how to play this. Like, what am I missing? I really need to play this. This is my bread and butter. My head is telling me this is stronger. Alright, another video coming very soon. Thanks for watching to the end, guys. I'll talk to you very soon. Peace. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate you.